Have you ever had the experience of really wanting to make something happen in your life, but for whatever reason, when you got home after a long day, all you really wanted to do was kind of plop down on the sofa, watch your favorite shows, and it felt really tough to get up and take action, even though the thing that you really want to create feels important. Well, that was an experience that I had several years ago when the desire had been on my heart and mind for a really long time to write a book. Now, I had been dabbling in the book for a while, but I didn't actually get consistent in terms of following through with the process. Now, what I discovered is that I was procrastinating. And not your typical level of procrastination, like a deep level of procrastination. And that's what we're going to talk about today. A special type of procrastination that I call productive procrastination. Well, you might be thinking, what's productive procrastination, Jamila? Well, let me tell you. It's an over-intellectualized holding pattern because you're smart enough to convince yourself that delaying action makes sense. Now, you know better not to do anything at all. So instead, you do something insignificant to give yourself the false appearance and temporary satisfaction of pretending to move forward. Productive procrastination is when you say, you're going to start working out as soon as you get some gym shoes or new workout clothes. I once had a client who said, I'm going to write down my goals as soon as I go to Target and get a bulletin board. Now, that might sound funny to you now, but trust me, you might be doing this. So I want to share with you how you can tell if you're being a productive procrastinator. First, you might be rationalizing why you can't start now. So you somehow have these excuses that make perfect logical sense, right, to any person as to why you can't actually get started. Or for you, it might be number two, that you don't feel confident in your ability. So you retreat to a safe place, learning and research. Because learning something, anything, makes you feel productive, but over time you become frustrated because you don't have any tangible results or significant progress. Yeah, I've been there. Now let me be clear. I'm not saying that learning is bad. I'm a lifelong learner. What I want you to realize is that there's a difference between learning and taking action versus using education as a place to hide or do something that feels comfortable. And I see this too often, especially in women. I was reading a study, maybe it was last year, and forgive me, I can't remember who published the study, but if you Google for it, it'll certainly come up. The study talks about how women tend to only go for jobs, and I'm going to get the exact statistics a little off, but it's they only go for jobs if they're 95%, it's some extreme number, confident that they are qualified in the skills that the job lists. However, men apply with a much less percentage, and I believe that was under 50%, that they felt confident that they had all of the skills. Now, this isn't about, men versus women, but it just brings to light that there are times when people, especially women, decide not to take action on an opportunity and instead feel like they don't know enough and they retreat to learning and research. Okay, number 3 is that you might be overcompensating. Maybe you've joined 2 or 3 workshops or classes, or maybe even a couple of networking groups, but nothing's moving forward. The additional commitments in your life tend to create a lack of focus, overwhelm, and mental spinning, where you keep thinking things like, oh, I don't know what to do next. And so what do? You turn back to learning and more research. I know this can be a vicious cycle, but that's not it. Number 4 that'll help you tell if you are in fact a productive procrastinator is if you are delaying decisions. Let's say you often find yourself saying things like, I need to think about it. You tell yourself you're doing it to be diligent and thoughtful so you have time to do your research, but really you're procrastinating due to a fear of making the wrong choice. You are struggling with that inner perfectionist that wants to ensure that you get it right the first time. And so you delay in making any decision instead of being wrong. Number 5 is that you might be caught in a I'm not enough story or I don't have enough story. This could apply to money, time, education, supplies. Remember that good old bulletin board? You keep telling yourself that you have to wait until fill in the blank with your chosen method of productive procrastination. But the truth is, you don't need more resources, time, money, education, or supplies. You need resourcefulness. Okay, I know exactly what you're thinking right now, and I'm going to tell you, well, how do I stop procrastinating? All right, let's jump into it. So in a moment where you feel overwhelmed, afraid of the outcome, or what I like to call fear of success, and you don't feel like doing what needs to be done, here's exactly what to do. The first thing that's going to help you to stop procrastinating is to decide that it is more painful to stay where you are than it is to grow. Maybe you have the same goals as last year. Income hasn't changed. You still hate the job. You still put everyone before yourself. You still haven't attracted the right partner, built the business, gone back to school, worked with a mentor or coach that can help you. You still have an average marriage or relationship when you know you could have a good one. You're still doing the same things and expecting different results. The pain of staying the same has to become greater than the discomfort of moving forward. Only when you're frustrated enough will you stop procrastinating. Funny story, I ran into an old girlfriend not too long ago, and I said to her, man, I've been watching you online and it's been so exciting to see how your business has grown and taken off over the last couple of years. And I'm just really happy for you. I said to her, what do you think has made the difference? Why do you think you've gotten so much traction? You've been at this for a really long time. What do you think the difference maker was that allowed you to really take off and reach these new levels of achievement in your life and business? And she said to me, I was tired of being broke. At the time, all I could do was laugh, because it sounded funny, but I knew that she was absolutely telling the truth. That the frustration of feeling like there's not enough money or time or fill in the blank was a position that she was sick of having. At the point that you decide that it's more painful to stay where you are than it is to grow, you will stop procrastinating. Number 2, that will help you to stop procrastinating is to figure out the next immediate step and do that. Don't focus on the big vision. As dreamers and people with big aspirations and goals and going after our dream lives, I know you, just like me, have a very big vision of what you want to accomplish. The challenge with those big visions is that sometimes we're so focused on the end result, like the way that we see it when we're finally there in our minds, that it feels heavy to start now, or it feels overwhelming to even figure out where to begin to get to that bigger vision. Well, I'm going to tell you where to begin with the next immediate step. It'll take a lot of small steps to get there. And what you need to do next is figure out that next immediate step, or what's stopping you from doing what's next, and get past it. In episode 1 of the Daily Success Show, I talk about how to put ideas in action. And in episode number 2, I talk about how your 90-day project year will help you determine what to work on. Go back and check out those episodes if you haven't listened to them yet. They will definitely help you to get clear on what projects to work on, and then coming up with those micro steps to move forward. I was talking with a friend a few weeks ago, and he was speaking really passionate about his desire to start a podcast. I was sharing, what I'd done with the Daily Success Show and how I put it together in a relatively short time period. And he had all of these great ideas for the podcast that he wanted to create, but he still hadn't started. And so I was like, well, what's the holdup? Like, what you want to create sounds amazing. Why haven't you done it yet? And he's like, well, I have some really big ideas about how the show should be edited. And then he kind of went on and explained to me these really cool edits and how he wanted to have background sounds in there. And he's a DJ as well. And he was talking about adding some music and all these fabulous things. And so I said to him, okay, it sounds awesome. Why don't you hire an editor? And he was like, well, I figured that it would take me some time to learn to edit myself. And so I just was going to go that route because hiring an editor would probably be pretty costly. I know that you might have had this experience too, that you've had concern about starting a project that you want to work on. But I want to encourage you and say that there's always ways to do things on a budget. The challenge is that you're asking your brain the wrong question. I've always had this saying for years, which is our brains are set up to help us achieve success, which means you have to feed it the right information. So if you say, I don't have enough money to invest in myself or get an editor or take this course or do the program or get the inventory that I need, then your brain's going to be like, okay, I guess you don't have it. But if you actually say to yourself, how do I make this happen on a budget? Trust me, your mind will kick into gear and start coming up with all kinds of ideas that you can execute on. I remember not long after college, there was this conference that I really wanted to go to. At the time, I was just getting started in my career as an entrepreneur. There was a girlfriend of mine who also wanted to go to this conference. And I'm thinking, man, I've just invested all my cash in getting this business going. And there's no way that I could really fly to this conference in Miami and pay, I think the registration fee was $700 or $800, which fresh out of college, that seemed like a ton of money at the time. I changed the question in my mind to how can I achieve this conference, go to this conference, even though I don't have the cash to invest in the registration. I phoned them up and I was kind of introduced myself and said, would you be willing to let me attend the conference? Well, actually, let me take a step back. I phrased it something more like, do you need volunteer help at the conference registration and some of the activities? And the director for the conference was like, yeah, we do need help. And I was like, well, hey, would you be open to letting me attend the conference for free in exchange for helping out the first 2 days of the conference? So I think it was a 3 or 4 day event. And so they completely agreed. And then I also negotiated for my girlfriend to come along as well. For me, that was my first time that I can really remember as an adult of leveraging the power of how our mind works to make a shift in my way of thinking in order to create the results that I wanted by asking and not being in a place of, I can't do it, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough connection, I don't have enough education. I just fed my mind the right question so that I could get the results that I was looking for. And you can absolutely frame your thoughts towards the questions that will get you closer to the results that you desire. Number 3 for how to stop procrastination is to practice just-in-time learning. Now, this is a concept that I heard about a couple years ago from a gentleman named Jason, and he talked about this idea of just-in-time learning, and since then I've kind of iterated. But the big idea is that you want to learn what you need for your immediate next step. So let's say, for example, that you are going through the process of starting a business, and your first step you decide is that you want to write your business plan to really get all your ideas out on paper and flush through the strategy and the marketing and all the things. If you don't already know how to write a business plan, then your next immediate step might be getting a sample business plan, searching on Google to figure out a sample business plan that you might be able to see the structure and framework for how a plan is set up. That is the next immediate step. If you feel like, hey, you want to go deeper in your learning, then all right, maybe you're picking up a book or listening to a podcast about how to set up your business plan, but you're not off reading strategies on the best way to market businesses and how to scale your revenue because you're not at that step yet. This example could apply to anything that you're doing. Let's just say that you are planning to start a blog. Maybe your first step is taking a Skillshare class on how to use WordPress to set up your blog. That is your next immediate step. You don't have to join a class on how to make revenue out of being a blogger or making an income, a full-time income on being a blogger. You're not at that step yet. You don't even have the first blog post done. All right, are you following me? Can you see how this makes sense? So the big idea here is, especially for my lifelong learners, you want to practice learning, acting, and then repeat. Learn, take action, repeat. All right, number 4 is to face your fears. I know that your worry or concern about whether or not the things that you want to accomplish are going to work out, if they're going to go as planned, if you'll get the opportunities that you truly desire, instead of not moving forward because you're afraid of what people will say or how your friends will perceive you, I want to invite you to explore what can go wrong. So actually think about what's the worst that can happen. Make a list and then figure out what you need to put in place to prevent it from happening. I was talking with one of our Achiever Club members last night over dinner, and she was sharing her worry about putting herself out there on social media in terms of Instagram or LinkedIn, promoting herself for her business because she didn't want people from her 9 to 5 would see her posting about this business that she was running and in fact start thinking that she was planning to leave or that it would negatively impact her perception at work. She happens to know that there are people from work that are following her online. So we just started thinking about, well, you know, what's the worst that can happen and what could you do to prevent it from happening? And I mean, the most obvious thing is to just block them on social media, right? So she could completely secretly block them so that when things are coming up, you know, they have no idea of what she's doing because it's not showing up in their feeds anymore. And if that feels a little harsh to you, then it might just be you set up a different social media account that they aren't following you on that really speaks to your business name and not your personal name, so that you can do all of your outreach and sharing of what you're working on through that channel instead of the ones that your colleagues are following you on. And I know that this is something that so many people struggle with. So I thought this was a perfect way to just think about, you know, are you productively procrastinating and playing small because of fear of what someone else is going to think? Number 5 is to bet on you. And let's just be real here. If you don't believe in yourself, who will? I want to invite you to work on strengthening your belief in your ability to take small steps every day towards what you want, and keep a daily list of your small wins. As a person with an achiever nature, it can happen that you're always seeking those big W's, the big wins, the big milestones. And if you're not getting those rapidly enough, you might feel like you're not making progress, and therefore you lose momentum and start procrastinating. I want to invite you to really just begin the idea of keeping track of those small wins that you have, that daily consistent action. That's the real secret sauce next to routines of helping you to accomplish your goals. Now, if you're utilizing a daily success routine planner, in our latest version of the planner, you'll find a section at the bottom which reminds you to share your daily gratitude and wins. It's action taking time. So go to shows.dailysuccessroutine.com. And on the post for episode 8, I want you to share what's something that you have been productively procrastinating on, and which of the practices that we discussed today do you plan to put in place to end it. Remember, this is all about progress and not perfection.